I've been a fan of this guy, and for those who know me, I'm actually a hater. I'm pretty much a hater. If something's not good, I won't say anything, but I'll know I'm a hater, you know? And so, but if something's good, I will give praise. And I mean, it's just something that as a designer, I just like, when I see a good design, I'll give it credit. When I see someone do something right, I give it credit. But you know, other times I'll just keep my mouth shut, but I'm a secret hater. With this, I've been a fan of Matt's work for a while. Go ahead and click to the next slide. And I've been a fan, and he does a lot of bands that I like. And one day I saw, and we both went to UNT, and I knew he lived in Fort Worth. And one time I saw that I met him at Hotel Dries. And we got to talk, and I said, hey, would you ever consider speaking to our Music.Know.How and talk about how you brand bands? And he's like, yeah, sure. And I was like, that was the biggest brush off. I'm never going to hear about this. So I hit him up, and he's like, yeah, when do you want to do it? And so that's just started a really cool relationship with him. And when he's got some really cool things to show, and he's just a super talented guy, and there couldn't be anyone nicer. So with that, please welcome Matt Cliff.
These waters down real fast. All right, well, yeah, it's all right. He already had his moment, but...
Also, I just want to make sure everyone, Martin House Brewery, every year they give, or every one of these, they actually donate all the beer and products. So whenever you're out buying a beer, make sure you give it up for Martin House for supporting local music. That's my last thing.
Oh, you got it. Thank you. And thank you for not hating me. I appreciate it. That's really flattering, and I hope that all of you won't hate me also by the end of this. I'm going to talk to you for like an hour, so get ready. It's a lot about me. I'm going to talk a little bit about music too, and we'll talk about branding. It's going to be fun stuff, but to start out, I'm Matt Cliff. Thank you very much for coming. I appreciate you carving time out of your schedule to come and see me today. Thank you here at Fort Worth, Printed Threads, Tom, everyone he listed. Genuinely appreciate you being here. You didn't have to, but I appreciate it. So like I said, I'm Matt Cliff. I'm an artist. I'm from right here in Fort Worth, Texas. And I was born in a women's prison. I don't want to start there, though. I do want to start from the very beginning. My dad was born in Wigan, England. It's a small little dot on a map. It's not very special by all accounts. It's just kind of a small little town on the shore in England that no one's ever heard of. They've got a football club, that's soccer in America, and a few other things, but nothing extremely notable. One cool thing, though, The Verve is from there. I don't know if any of you remember that, so it might not be cool, but you remember that song, Bittersweet Symphony? Yeah, it's a great song. Cool. Thank you for the audience participation, Tom. We're warming up here. So The Verve is from there. And there's another thing about Wigan that's kind of cool, too. Kinda. It's hard to understand. They speak with a dialect there called Wiganese. I had never heard of it before, but that's what they speak with. No one fucking understands it outside of Wigan. And even people in Wigan don't understand it. Here's an example.
Wigan dialect. For example, if someone was to ask me whether Alex was awake yet, I might reply, nay, as he ek, he's not got for goot bed as lat. This roughly translated means, no, of course he hasn't. He mustn't go to bed so late.
Yeah, did y'all get that? No? Thank you, Uncle Pete. Everyone get up for my Uncle Pete for doing that. Thank you so much. That's not my Uncle Pete. I made that up. So, anyway, not to flex, I am a descendant of British royalty. Yeah, believe it or not. Yeah, cool, right? So, everyone thinks the UK, you think kings and queens. That's me. Right? No, I made that up. I actually found this picture of my dad shit-faced in the 70s trying to light a cigarette with a Burger King crown on and thought that was a great segue that was way more interesting than that. So it's cool. It's a cool picture. So this guy right here, this is Gordon Cliff. Gordon Cliff, we called him Gran, by all accounts, kind of an asshole, but, you know, he did what he needed for his family. So Gordon moves from Wigan to Dayton, Ohio, 1967. He has basically working this job, gets let go from the job, and has 5 days left on his worker's visa. He goes into a bar and he meets a guy, and the guy informs him he's the person in charge of personnel for General Motors. And he says, go drop my name there and I'll make sure you get a job. Goes, gets the job, and in 1969, he moves his entire family. My dad, his twin brother Pete, who did not just show up in that video, sister, brother, and mother. They all come to America, and everything they know about America is movies and television. So I'm sure they're thinking they're gonna go see the Hollywood sign or maybe the Empire State Building, and they're all excited about it. Well, they end up in scenic Fairborn, Ohio. Yeah, Fairborn, Ohio. It's a pretty unremarkable town also. It's pretty small. I like it a lot, but it's pretty small. I don't have a lot going for them, but they got some cool stuff too. The Wright brothers are from there, right? That's pretty cool, except for they're not. They're from Dayton, but everything in Fairborn is named after the Wright brothers for some reason, okay? But they do have Dave Chappelle. Some people like Dave Chappelle. He's pretty funny, he's famous, right? Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, he's not from there either. He's from Yellow Springs. He's like 10 minutes up the road, but everyone's like, yeah, we live 10 minutes from Dave Chappelle, so you just assume he's from Fairborn. But they're a Midwestern town. So they've got corn. They're famous for corn, right? They got a corn festival? They're kind of famous for corn. In fact, they're so kind of famous for corn that they came up with a really catchy slogan. Fairborn, kind of famous for corn. That's not actually their water tower. I photoshopped it because I thought it was a funny idea. So we'll take it to Fairborn High. My dad had to restart high school after graduating in England and ended up at Fairborn High in Ohio, and he had to start at 10th grade. But it wasn't all a loss. He was bummed to be there, but he met Barbara Ann Campbell. She was a cheerleader. She was funny. Awesome. Well, that's my mom. Things worked out pretty well. They got married. Then he joined the Air Force, and then guess where they ended up? Back in England. Yeah, magically, back in England. So they got stationed in England, then they came back to Ohio, then they went to Kansas. Man, they're just getting all the good states, right? Kansas, Ohio, up to beautiful West Virginia. It's a little better. And then we wind up in, and this is the moment that we're all excited about, the stars at night are big and bright. Deep in the heart of Texas. Fort Worth, motherfucker. We're in Fort Worth. Yeah. We're all sitting in Fort Worth right now. It's awesome. This is where I start here. And do you remember at the beginning of this, I mentioned something about me being in Fort Worth and where I come from? A women's prison. Yeah, that's the women's prison I was born in. Carswell Air Force Base. And I bet you're thinking, how'd you end up in that women's prison? Well, I'll tell you in a minute. Just chill. They had some notable inmates there. That's Squeaky Fromm from the Manson family. She didn't kill anybody, but years later, she tried to kill President Gerald Ford, and that's why she was there. Another one, Marion Jones. She just did steroids and lied about it federally, and then now she's there. And then the other inmate that we're going to talk about, and this one's much more important to the story. Can you guess? That's not my mom. I made that up too. So what I did there is I tried to give you a hook at the beginning of it, right? At the beginning of it. It's like merchandising and design and advertising. You got to give people something that's kind of interesting, because it's not interesting to be born in a hospital. Everybody's pretty much born in a hospital, and the ones that aren't have a better story than me. So I said I was born there, but in all reality, I was 6, and then they turned it into a women's prison. It used to be a hospital. I was born a toad. That was me. Yeah, so as a toad, I laid with a bear a lot, but then I developed into a human, and as I developed into a human, I got really interested in shapes and colors, but most babies do, but it was weird. It's still here. I'm still obsessed with shapes and colors. This right here is an Ethan Allen coffee table. Why? Well, because as soon as I found markers and pens and all sorts of things like that, I just started drawing on the bottom of this. This was in my living room, and all of my original drawings were at the bottom of this table. I looked it up recently. This is like a $1,500 table. My parents don't have it anymore, but somewhere in the world floating around, unless it's been burned or redone, there's an Ethan Allen table. It's got all my drawings at the bottom of it. I was inspired by a lot. I would watch my brother and my mom draw famous celebrities out of a Famous Faces book. Mostly Lucille Ball, that's the one I remember the most. I was really into a book that a lot of children loved called Hollywood Glamour Portraits, really popular in the children's libraries. It was a black and white book full of these beautiful images. They were all cinematic, which I knew the definition of by 3, right? Like everybody else. No, that was cinematic and gorgeous, and they were laid out in such an amazing way that it made photography really interesting to me. Where the Sidewalk Ends. Did y'all read that? Shel Silverstein, The Giving Tree? Brilliant. Where the Sidewalk Ends was both funny, and it had these really crude illustrations that just blew my little mind up. I had a Pee-wee calendar. We were a big Pee-wee's Playhouse household. This one was really cool because it had all these bright dates, and then I would look at the dates, and then when I learned how to read, I would be able to read what the dates were. Otherwise, I was just looking at the bright colors and shapes, which I already said I'm into. But I saw like names like Pablo Picasso and Walt Disney and all these really neat names, and then I learned what they did, and I thought, oh, that's cool. I like to draw too. Maybe I can be one of them. Fort Worth Star-Telegram. On Sundays in particular, you used to get the newspaper, and they had a color comic strip. Once again, colors. In my mind, I was so happy just to see a bunch of colors. So I was drawing Shoe, Beetle Bailey, Snoopy, Charlie Brown, everything. Every Sunday, I would just sit there and I would draw for hours and hours and hours. Chris Van Allsburg, the illustrator of the drawing in the top right corner, he was a surrealist illustrator, and he wrote children's books. He wrote Jumanji. He wrote Polar Express, the movie that scares everybody. And lastly, I was really inspired, no, not by R. Crumb. I wasn't that cool at like 4. I was inspired by my Uncle Mike. My Uncle Mike would draw these pictures. I remember one time he drew this really funny picture, but I didn't understand why it was funny until I got older, and now I'm not sure if it was funny, called Charles Panson. It was a panda bear, but it was Charles Manson. And that's the last time that I'll reference Charles Manson in this entire presentation. So if you're here for the Manson talk, you can go ahead and cut out. I also watched a lot of television. I was super into Andy Griffith. It's my favorite show of all time. The cool thing about him, guy never carried a gun. He specifically did not carry one because he would handle everything with communication. It's the same thing with art, right? You see a picture, you like the picture, you get the point across if it's really well executed. He taught about empathy. He taught about humanity. He taught about goodness. I try and have that with people. I try and treat people with respect, whether it's Pearl Jam or my dog. It's the same thing. Everyone's the same. I also got super into Tim Burton movies as a small child. I was that perfect age, 3 to 5, somewhere in there. And I know he catches a lot of flack in modern day. It's not cool like Tim Burton, but whatever. He did Pee-wee's Big Adventure. That's an amazing movie. Bright, funny, creative, and that large Marge scene was terrifying. Edward Scissorhands. The colors were beautiful. Every house was perfect. Every lawn was perfect. It was similar to like a Chris Van Allsburg book with the perfection and everything, but it wasn't black and white, so it was even more intriguing to me. And the creme de la creme, Nightmare Before Christmas. My God, I did not understand what the fuck was going on at all. It was incredible. I was like, are these real or are these not real? My brain is not formed enough to understand what this is, but I love it and I feel weird about it. Then I got really into the Addams Family movies. Inspired me to use my imagination. Oh man, it was the best. It was dark. It was also similar to Tim Burton movies. But it inspired my imagination so much that I spent a good chunk of my childhood walking around the yard with a nozzle in my mouth, pretending it was a light bulb like Uncle Fester. Now, my parents never really knocked me for my imagination. That's cool, but there were probably pesticides on that, and they probably should have said something about that, and that may explain kind of how I am now. 1994, I carry that imagination over to Bembrook Elementary. That's me, the giant dude in the back wearing a tie. No one told me to wear a tie, I just did it. It's a real independent thinker. This is my teacher, Miss Conlon. And this is my best friend, Patrick Hogan. Now, Patrick Hogan was a special needs kid. And when I walked into class, I recognized him immediately. He was kind of by himself, and no one was really talking to him. And then when people would interact with him, they weren't very nice. I saw that as an opportunity to be friends with someone who didn't have friends. Now, the thing about that is I was able to put into practice what I saw Andy Griffith do, right? Like I was able to say, hey, I'm gonna stand up for this dude. I'm gonna be his friend. And taking that stance, by the end of the year, he had a bunch of friends. Empathy. I want to just encourage empathy, and I want to encourage friendliness and standing up for people. And art, you don't have to make a stance every time you do something. I do a little too much sometimes, okay? It can be off-putting to people, but hey, it's art. Some people are gonna like it, some people are not. So I'd rather them not like my opinion than my drawing. I don't know why, but Miss Conlon here though, Miss Conlon was phenomenal. She was one of the first adults that wasn't a parent to champion me as an artist, if you can call someone 5 years old an artist. She would take all of my drawings and she would have me draw these drawings. She would send me from class to class. And she would say, hey, look at this drawing Matt did. Matt did this drawing. Isn't that funny? Isn't that a good drawing? And I'd go to the principal for a good reason, and she would say, wow, that's a great drawing. And I felt confidence. I felt what I didn't understand was confidence at that point. At one point, she asked us to draw a picture of a president. I drew Abraham Lincoln, and it wound up in the hall of our elementary school. It was the only one that ended up in the hall. And I thought to myself, well, maybe this is how you become a Walt Disney or a Pablo Picasso. Maybe this is what I can do. An adult believes in me. I don't have a picture of it, but it was probably pretty good. I mean, it made it to the hallway of Benbrook Elementary. Pretty sure it looked like this. I was amazing. I was so good. It was a real savant. But oils. This is all oils. Brings us to summer of 96. Now, I spent the summer of 96, and we're not going to go through every year, so relax. I spent the summer of 96 with my older brother. He's 8 years older than me. His name's Tristan, and my little sister Cassie, who's about a year younger than me. And my brother would watch us. And we had cable television. It was so cool. And the thing we would do is flip through all these channels. But the one channel we always landed on, because my brother was the right age for this channel, was MTV. Man, we were on MTV all the time. MTV Beach House, I should not have been watching that at that age, but it was great. And we would stick around and we would wait for these cycles of music videos to come through, right? So Paranoid Android, I remember that vividly. Golly, it was the most crude illustrations, and I honestly thought when I was a kid that I might be able to draw better than that, but they were so cool and the colors were so great. Buddy Holly by Weezer. Dude, I was watching TV Land all the time. How did they end up on Happy Days? It blew my mind. The little girl in No Rain, Blind Melon. Talk about empathy. She ends up in a field full of people dressed like her. That's bizarre. It's awesome. I love it. Take it or give it away by the Red Hot Chili Peppers. Some of y'all are going to hate on the Chili Peppers, but that video is very, very weird and awesome. Jamiroquai, he was moving. The room was moving. That's insane. I'm not going to take you through every single one of these, but you see some that you probably recognize. And all of you are inspired by things too, just like me. The one thing that really inspired me more than anything, the one that I would wait hours and hours and hours for the cycle to get through, was Tonight Tonight by the Smashing Pumpkins. Oh my God. This is arguably the most pivotal artistic thing that I saw as a child was this music video. I mean, it was unbelievable. Look at this art direction. I later found out that the art direction on this was done by Wayne White, who also did Pee-wee's Playhouse, and there's a really great documentary about him. Yeah, it's phenomenal. I ended up getting to work with Wayne White when I was at UNT, and he was just as cool and weird as you would hope he would be. But look at this. I mean, it mixed actual human actors with puppetry. It had these amazing illustrations, and they were all based off of an old silent film, but colorized. It was amazing. Going into second grade, I have a teacher named Miss Sonnenstein. Now, things around my house got pretty rough in second grade. My dad, he leaned into his alcoholism real bad. Sometimes he would get drunk and not come pick us up from school. Miss Sonnenstein would see my little sister and I sitting on the curb waiting for a ride, and she would invite us inside. And she would let us sit in her room, and she'd give me paper, and she would let me draw. And she would talk to me like a normal kid. And on the last day of school, she gave everybody a book called Why Do Mosquitoes Buzz in Your Ear? But she held me after class, and she gave me one extra thing. She gave me a sketchbook. It was a little sketchbook that had race cars on the outside of it. I didn't know shit about cars, but I wasn't going to hurt her feelings. No, I'm kidding. But she gave that to me, and she said, this is for you. You can put everything in here, and this is where you can keep everything. And I did for that entire summer. And I wish I still had it. But yet again, there's another adult. And I don't know how many of you have children or around children. Encourage them. Encourage them when they want to do something cool. Encourage them if they're weird. I had teachers doing that for me, and now I get to be weird, but then like really cool bands pay me to be weird with them. It's really awesome. September 21st, 1999, I'm in 5th grade, and my dad ends up dying from alcoholism. He has cirrhosis. He tells a room of people with beer and decides to make everyone depressed. But so he ends up passing away, and that completely flipped my perspective of life on its head. It made me realize that there's a time clock on all of this. Made me realize that whatever you want to get done in your lifetime, you have to get done in your lifetime. And there's no timer on that. There's no set thing. You're not going to be 100 years old. My dad was 46. So after learning this, I decided that I was going to pursue the things that I like to do because I had that ability. Now, I basically was at a kind of low point for a 5th grader. I went through the tumultuous years of middle school, and I found myself in high school. I was still super interested in art. And in 2003, I ended up in Cleveland because apparently my family can't leave Ohio. We're just constantly in Ohio. So I end up in Cleveland at the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. And while I'm there, I discover that the wall between the things that you think are fake and the things that you think are real, well, it can be knocked down. And you can go stand in front of Michael Jackson's Thriller jacket or the sequined glove, or if you want Jim Morrison's Boy Scout uniform. That's a very particular one, but it was cool. But I also discovered someone named Jimi Hendrix at that point. Jimi Hendrix for me was the same as like a Paul Bunyan or even a George Washington or an Abraham Lincoln. It was like a being that didn't actually exist, and I'd heard about them my entire life. And I found out they had videos of him. And I walk into this dark room with all of these cool lights in it and all that stuff, and there's a giant screen, and it's loud, and it's awesome. And there's Jimi Hendrix. Wow, Mama Cass is right. I agree with Mama Cass on that. That was amazing. So anyway, I immediately asked for a guitar and a video of Jimi Hendrix at Monterey Pop Festival for Christmas. And my mom gets them for me, and then I feverishly start drawing Jimi Hendrix nonstop. It was kind of weird, but I just started drawing him. So this is from 2003-ish. That was like the person that I drew the most. I don't know how many of you are actually familiar with me. I work with Leon Bridges a lot. I've probably drawn that dude 1,000,000 times, but up until that point, I was drawing Jimi Hendrix like nonstop. It was a real problem. Here's another one. So a little bit later, I end up at Half Price Books, which I'm blessed to be in an area where Half Price Books exist. I walk in there with the little bit of money that I have, and I find this book, Man's Ruin, The Posters and Art of Frank Kozik. Have any of you heard of Frank Kozik? You have. Hey, what's up, dude? That's a friend of mine. But anyhow, Frank Kozik had this book just full of amazing images, and they were for the coolest bands: Nirvana, the Melvins, Red Hot Chili Peppers, Neil Young. He had everyone. And the images didn't have to make sense. He was just kind of like, hey, this looks cool. This has nothing to do with that band. And it worked for some reason. I'll talk about that a little bit later, but he did a great job of it. So I saw that somebody had spent their whole life drawing concert posters, and I thought, well, that's an in. Maybe that's how I get people to notice my artwork. It wasn't that good. I was like 15. But maybe that would work for me. So I reach out to a band called Brave Combo. Has anybody heard of Brave Combo? Okay, a few people. So Brave Combo, they were like the first band that I ever went and saw. They're out of Denton. They're a nuclear polka band, which your guess is as good as mine. And they're one of Matt Groening's favorite bands. Matt Groening, the guy who created The Simpsons. In fact, they played his wedding. But they're out of Denton, right? They actually appear in an episode of The Simpsons called Codependence Day. Look it up. They're just in the background playing. Anyway, so I reached out to them, and they said, yeah. They said, yeah, you can draw us a poster for free. Yeah. Now, in their defense, I offered to draw it for free because I was like 14, 15, couldn't really get a job, so I was just looking for something kind of productive to do, and I was bored. So I started drawing posters for Brave Combo. Yeah, they didn't use it. which means it probably wasn't that great because it was free and they still didn't use it. But I don't have any pictures, but literally if you just Google most incredible drawing ever, you'll find something comparable to what I did for them. Fall 2007. I had just graduated high school. I went to Western Hills on the west side of Fort Worth. I was a cougar. Before that changed nomenclature and people thought of it as a different thing. It was a cat, and that's what we were. I actually drew our ID, and there's a guy who still gives me shit about the fact he only has 3 fingers on one paw. Whatever, man, I wasn't in anatomy. I was just trying to get an ID drawn. So, fall 2007, I just graduated. I'm just kind of floating around, and then I get my first paying gig. It's for a band called Spoon. Spoon fans, anybody? Yeah, Spoon, man, they were cool. It was like 2007. They were in their height. They were playing like Saturday Night Live and Conan O'Brien. They were playing all these cool things, and they're based out of Austin. So I'd sent them an email. I basically had nothing to show. And I said, can I draw a poster? And I left the word free out that time. And then at the end of it, my jaw dropped. They said, how much you want for it? So I asked for like $400, and I took care of the posters. So I ended up losing like $800 probably, but it's whatever, man. I didn't really have $800. My stepdad luckily was helping me out at that point. The image from there is a callback. Now you may remember that weird book I was obsessed with as a kid, Hollywood Glamour Portraits. Well, there was this image of Barbara Stanwyck in there, and since I wasn't very good at the internet, I kind of just had to find references where I needed them. And I saw this picture of this actress, Barbara Stanwyck, and her head was the perfect angle. And I thought, well, man, that's exactly what I need. Now, how can I change this up a little bit? And then it wound up being something like this. So you can kind of see it. I was also not so good at stippling at that point, and it looks kind of like a hot mess, but I'm really proud of it. This poster still hangs in the green room at the Orange Peel in Asheville, North Carolina. So I did it, right? I'm a paid artist now. I'm a huge success. I rode that wave. It was awesome. But I didn't. I decided I would just start a band, which no fucking reason whatsoever. I just was like, I'm going to be in a band. So I played places like the Moon. I played the Aardvark. Played Ridgely Theater, Lola's. Played all of these places. While I was doing that, I did draw my own posters. That's what kind of got me back into it, right? I was playing with people like Brandon Lee from Flickerstick. I was playing with Calhoun, and we played their farewell show before their actual farewell show. The Campaign. I don't really remember them very much, but we played with them too because that poster says so. And I was still studying art. I was still immersing myself in art. And I got super into psychedelic rock posters. Oh my God, look at these colors. Look at these, they're beautiful. These are classics. You've got Grateful Dead and Jim Morrison and Jimi Hendrix, of course, the 13th Floor Elevators. And later on in life, I had the luxury of designing one of the very last 13th Floor Elevator posters ever. That's one of the high points of my career. My favorite artist was a guy named Wes Wilson. He was kind of Bill Graham's go-to poster guy back in the day, and he was phenomenal. His color choices were great. Look at those colors behind him. That sound one behind him over his right shoulder, that gets mimicked all the time. I've seen so many people steal that thinking that they're hip to Wes Wilson and no one else knows who he is, but he's the best. Also, totally cool to be derivative. Be derivative. Everything's derivative. If you see something you like, do something with it, and then figure out how to do your own thing from there. From there, I discovered Alphonse Mucha. Now, the thing about the 60s psychedelic art is that it's very derivative of Art Nouveau. So you'll see a lot of things pop up, the framework, just the angles of the women in them. A lot of times they're just very flowy, just like the words. But the framework is the big thing that you take away from that. You see a resurgence of it come in the 60s. So I was super into it. In fact, he's the reason why I still have a hard time not putting frames around literally fucking every drawing that I do. It's a problem. I also discovered Andy Warhol at that point in time. Now the thing about Andy Warhol, and this kind of relates to what we're going to end up talking about today once I get through this diatribe about myself, is he taught me that consumerism is art. It can be art. You go down a grocery aisle, somebody created that box. There's art all around you. There's drawings that are all past you. Nobody's looking at them. It's everywhere. Look, it's a Brillo box. That's totally bizarre. Why would you buy that? You can just go get one off a shelf, right? You don't need that Brillo box. but look how bold the letters are. Look at how perfect the colors are. Look at how clean everything is. Changed my mind about art. I went from these really flowy drawings to, wow, I really like bold letters. That's very cool. That was a segue into Ed Ruscha. Now, I didn't have a lot of money growing up, and so if I was gonna do something, a lot of times I would end up at the Modern Art Museum or one of the museums because they were free sometimes. So I'd go on the free days, and luckily, Fort Worth's just a bunch of uncultured pigs. No, I'm kidding. Luckily, no, they weren't super busy, right? So I would go in there, and the thing that I was struck by about his painting was that the surrealism was kind of flipped, right? So you've got this like very bold, beautiful, simple structure, and then up in the right-hand corner, he paints this realistic-looking comic book that's just like floating there. It looks like someone set it on there, but it's all paint. The boldness of the letters was a lot like Warhol. It was awesome. And to be totally honest, you may recognize a lot of these colors because they're in almost every one of my slides because I'm addicted to his color palette. I use this on posters for everyone. Pearl Jam, same color palette. Texas Gentleman, same color palette. Leon, same color palette. It's a great jumping off point. I also discovered John Alcorn. Now the thing about John Alcorn is that he created this ad for Pepsi-Cola in 1969. This image has stuck with me my entire life, and this is a super ripped off design. You see this in everything. And you think somebody's like, oh man, look at this guy's really honing in on this psychedelic illustration. No man, we're all just ripping off John Alcorn. He's awesome. The thing that I pulled from John Alcorn though, in particular, was these flowers at the bottom. I like those flowers so much, I drew them on my guitar, right there. See, I did that to help y'all. So I did it right there. I drew them on there, I Sharpied them, and then I threw some clear coat over it. And then I decided that I wasn't gonna play that guitar anymore, so I quit my band and I moved down to Austin. Now, I was in Austin about a year. I floated around down there, kept looking at art, basically trying to get by. It was already expensive there. So I had my amp in the pawn shop all the time, and I was paying my rent. It was like a cycle. Like I'd have my amp in the pawn shop for like a week, and then I'd get it for 3 weeks, and then, it's just the system. So anyway, I moved back from Austin, back to Fort Worth, good old Fort Worth. So I end up in Fort Worth, and I start working at a place called the Aardvark off of Berry Street. Yeah, it changed my whole life. I like that A that I heard, that slight A. Thank you very much. It was a very important place to me. I got into a relationship. I got out of a relationship. And you get sad when you get out of a relationship sometimes. It's fine. But I had a really reflective day one day, and I said, you know what? I think I'm going to get back into the art thing. I think I'm just going to start doing art again. So I realized, I probably should start emailing people like I did back in the day. Here's a dilemma. If you don't have a computer, you can't email people, right? So I'm going to show you how to get a computer when you're broke. All right, so I'm up at the Aardvark. Follow me. I'm working there. There's this asshole that hangs out at the Aardvark, right? He's got a Mark Hoppus pink bass. Well, he steals some money from the Aardvark, and he leaves the bass up there like a dummy. So now that bass doesn't have a home. So my friend Josh says, this is my bass. He took money from us. We get his bass. Cool. Josh looks at me. He says, you used to play music. How about if I give you a bass? Sure, I'll take that bass. So I take that bass, and I'm talking to my friend Fern. And I said, man, I really want to get back into art. I need to send some emails and stuff like that. And Fern says, well, I got a laptop. And I go, you play bass. Why don't we just trade? So I trade that laptop for that bass, and that's how I got a laptop. And it was a shitty little Gateway, and that's how you do it, okay? Yeah. Man, out of all the things that got applause, I wasn't expecting thievery to be the one, but, we're all hustling, right? Anyway, so I get a laptop. I send fucking 75 emails. I just literally went down summer festival posters and tried to find all the bands that's names weren't too big and weren't too small. And I just looked on their Facebook and I found their contacts for their managers. That's how I started. Facebook, probably MySpace. I don't know. I'm getting kind of old now, but yeah. So I found all these, and I got 73 denials. Yeah, that's a lot, right? That could be pretty disheartening if it weren't for those two that didn't deny me, right? Because we're doing the math here, 75 minus 73, 2, okay? So one of the bands that gets back to me, the Flaming Lips. Oh man, I was shitting myself. How cool is that, right? Like Flaming Lips, they're weird, they're cool. Well, that one fell through, and that ended up just being my 74th denial. Then the Black Angels come along. Y'all ever heard of the Black Angels? Oh, they're great. Man, they really revitalized psychedelic music in Texas. So I reach out to the Black Angels, and I get this email back. Hi, Matt. Thank you for reaching out. On copy is Christian from the Black Angels. I'm like, holy shit, there's actually a member of the band in this email? That's crazy, because I don't understand technology, and I know that he probably shouldn't be talking to me. He's interested in talking about potentially collaborating. Let me know if you have any questions or anything else. Thanks. Best, Lauren. She was their manager at the time. Right after that, I get a text. Hey, Matt, can you make it down to Austin this week, talk about some art? That was from Christian. So I was like, oh man, I'm kind of in it and I don't really know what I'm doing. So let's hope this works out. So I head down to Austin. Now, I was working at a bakery over off of University at this point in time, and in full transparency, I wasn't sure if I had time off. I don't even know if they had time off, and I definitely didn't have the money to go to Austin, and I definitely didn't have money to drink a coffee if I was at this coffee spot meeting up with them. So I was like a little apprehensive, but eventually I said, I'm gonna do it. So I drive down to Austin. I walk into this coffee bar, and I had never seen this dude in my life. I had no idea what he looks like. I'm nervous as shit. And now, can I get 2 volunteers? There's something in it. There's something in it for you. 2 volunteers. It's real quick. You, come on up. All right. So, okay. I got a script here. All right. There you go. By the way, I'm Matt.
Jesse.
Jesse.
Hi, I'm Jay.
Jay. Jesse and Jay. Give it up for Jesse and Jay, please. Okay. So I walk up, and they're going to play the parts of me and Christian in this incident because it's boring if I just talk about it, and you guys need a break from me talking. So let's start. You're Matt, by the way. You're Christian.
Oh, okay, cool.
Matt?
Yeah, Christian.
Oh man, thanks for having me, dude. Oh wait, is that my line? Yeah, I brought you a poster.
Oh man, thanks. Oh man, thanks for having me, dude. I brought your poster. That was my line.
Oh, that was great.
It's okay.
Thanks for meeting with me.
Oh,
Very good. You brought me the poster.
Yes, there we go.
Fine. Okay, cool. Oh man, that's awesome. Thanks, man.
You bet.
So a little about the project. One of the band members just left, and we just about finished with a new album. We need to start thinking about the art for the album.
Oh yeah, cool. It says eyes wide and shitting my pants with excitement.
You read it. I was hoping you would read it.
Lauren sent me your work, and I think you'd be great for the illustrations and the lyric booklet that comes out in the album. Would you be interested?
Yeah, for sure. Still shitting my pants.
Yeah, he did it. He's doing great.
Last album's illustrations were done by Wes Wilson.
Remember Wes Wilson? Hey, yeah, give it up for Wes Wilson. He's awesome. Let's go. He's awesome. He's the best. Aw, look, he reacted to you guys. All right. Let's see where we at. Cool.
Oh yeah. I think the name of the album is Indigo Meadow, by the way.
I have these flowers I drew out on my guitar. I think could be cool for that album name.
Oh, I love those. Here's a rough of the album. Hands Matt CD. I'm excited to see what you do.
I can't wait to get rolling.
And scene. Thank you guys very much. Jay, here you go. There you go.
Thank you.
Keep the posters. No, keep them. No, I don't need those. That'd be weird if I just kept that on me all the time, wouldn't it? Just making people pretend to be me. Anyway, so they expertly acted that. That's kind of roughly how that went down. And I was shitting my pants, as said by Jay multiple times. So I drive back to Fort Worth. I realized we had a month to get this record done. And yeah, basically it gets even worse or better, depending on how you look at it. 1 week later, I get a phone call. It's Christian. He says, hey, man, I really like those flowers you drew on that guitar. And also, I've been looking at those letters on Spoon. By the way, he's on like a shit ton of acid, more than likely. I don't know about that. I just made that up. But so he loved it. He said, do you want to do the cover of Indigo Meadow? Well, yeah, I do. That'd be awesome. So let's talk dilemmas here, right? Dilemmas. Yeah, I got no fucking idea how to do this at all. How do I even start? I probably need some sort of program to start, and I'm using a hand-me-down Gateway laptop. How do I get the drawings from paper to computer in order to send them to Christian? Who puts them in an album template? How do I find this template? How do I ask and not blow this? Well, I got answers for you. You have to face your certain demise. You look it up on YouTube, because that's a thing, and now I have a laptop, so I can do that. Ask everyone I know. I didn't need a laptop for that. I just talked to everybody. Be honest about your situation. Hope that everyone calling the shots is cool. That's a big one, because if they're not, you're kind of screwed. Bust your ass. Now, that's just a general thing you should do constantly if you're trying to get somewhere you want to be. Be kind and easy to work with. What I said about bust your ass, same thing for that. Find a golden idea. Sometimes they're not there, work hard for it. Make something fucking cool. That's where you gotta get. You gotta get to the make something fucking cool. And you gotta deal with the horse shit to get there, right? It worked. April 2nd, 2013, I did the cover for Indigo Meadow by the Black Angels. I went from having no idea how to do this to having a record on record shelves. Did you notice the flowers? They're the same ones on that guitar that I ripped off of Alcorn back off of his Pepsi poster. Be derivative. It's okay. Still, I liked Warhol. Warhol stole. I get jacked for my style a lot. Not trying to flex, it just happens, and it's honestly very flattering. Let me preface real quick. A lot of people have been selling my shit on eBay, though. That's not cool, because I'm not making anything off of that. I actually put a little note on my posters that said, hey, you stole this off of eBay, or you stole this design, you should pay artists to do your work. So here we are, Indigo Meadow by the Black Angels. It's really a great album. It's not my favorite Black Angels album. Phosphine Dream is, but it's a great album. It allowed me some really awesome stuff. When I was scraping by in Austin, man, I couldn't walk into Waterloo Records or End of Veneer and buy a record. I didn't have money to do that. I was pawning my guitar amp every month. But here I am standing in front of Waterloo Records and End of Veneer, and my artwork is plastered on the sides of it, and they're selling records that I did inside of this place. It was unbelievable. And I could cry thinking about it. It gives me chills. Just hitting that first accomplishment. That seemed fucking impossible. And a lot of things are going to seem fucking impossible to you at times. Whether it's making a record or just getting by, you can do it. And I did it. Now, this also led to one of the most incredible moments in my life.
Everybody, we're back. Tomorrow night, my next guest will be appearing at the Mayan in downtown Los Angeles. And tonight, they're here with a song from their latest album, Indigo Meadow. Please welcome the Black Angels.
Conan fucking O'Brien. Are you kidding me? Jeez. You guys, I used to come home from high school and I'd watch replays of the night before his show on Comedy Central with my mom while we ate dinner every single night. He was basically my family. He worked on The Simpsons. He worked on Saturday Night Live. He worked on all these amazing things. And here I am looking at him holding my record on television. And I didn't tell my mom, and I recorded it. And then it came to it, and my mom let out the best scream I ever heard in my whole life. It was amazing. And when I got the paycheck for that, you know what the first thing I did? She kept all her bills by the computer. I took that money, and I paid every single bill that I could of hers. I made $1,500 off that record. That's nothing for a record. That's a lot of money to anybody. Okay, cool, so you made it, right? No. No, you didn't at all. No, you got a lot of restaurant jobs ahead of you. So between then and now, I met my wife, Sadie, and she kicked my ass into gear. She saw what I was doing and how I wasn't pursuing it as hard as I should have, and she said, treat this like a fucking business and get after it and use your talent. You should be doing this for a living. I went to school, UNT, not a big fan, but I went there. Graduated, I hardly slept. I cooked more meals and talked to more strangers than I ever wanted to in a line of endless restaurant jobs. In fact, I've only been freelance fully at this for 2 years. I was managing the West Side Cafe on the west side of Fort Worth 2 years ago while I was doing all this, pushing 60 to 90-hour weeks, year in, year out. I kept pushing in art, and I always remember to ask myself, why not me? And that's an important question to ask yourself. Remember that wall I was talking about at the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame? Doesn't exist. All of a sudden you're in front of Michael Jackson's jacket and you realize it's just a person wearing a jacket? Yeah, Ask yourself, why not me? Because everybody that's achieving the things that you want to achieve, every single one of them, same thing as you. Blood, skin, bones, guts, that's all they are. And they got an idea and they worked hard. And sometimes that hard work doesn't get met. Sometimes you don't get where you're going. But you can at least try because you got a little bit of time to make it happen. This is a quick list of every band that I can remember working with since that Black Angels record. I don't think that's all of them, but I think that's most of them. I got to work on some really amazing stuff. I got to work with Post Malone. I got to work on a campaign with Raising Cane's, of all places. I'm a 10-year vegan. Man, it took some fucking convincing, too. They were hounding my ass for about a month, and I was like, I don't know, man, I'm vegan. That's probably kind of fucked up, right? And then they were like, well, there's an international superstar, and let me tell you something. When you're trying to make it in something that's hard to make it in, sell the fuck out. Sell out. Sell out. Whatever, dude. It's hard. People that use the word sell out, they're people that never try to do something hard. Okay? Just remember that. So here's him holding the cup, and then there's a giant billboard. That restaurant's still there. It's out near Dallas. You can go see it right now. But yeah, that was pretty fucking cool. Next thing, Pearl Jam. Man, those music videos that I was watching in the 90s, I used to watch Pearl Jam in the 90s. Apparently, their videos didn't make the cut of videos I remember from the earlier slide, but I remember them. Yeah, they reached out. They reached out to me, a dude who just lives in a small town in Texas. I'm from Benbrook. I'm in a little area. Yeah, Pearl Jam knows who I am. Doesn't really fucking matter at the end of the day, but that's kind of cool. I worked with the Killers. Now, when I was in high school, I loved the Killers. I used to take a picture of Brandon Flowers, the lead singer, to Great Clips and have them cut my hair like him. It's true. I told everyone on their team that. I hope they told him. I also get to work with Tim Heidecker. I get to work with people that are, jumping from genre to genre. Growing up, graduating in 2007, Adult Swim was a massive thing, and man, I was a Tim and Eric fan. It completely ruined me and my buddy Josh's sense of humor completely. It was horrible. He's playing Music.Know.How, and they asked me if I would come and draw some advertising material for him, and I got to. I got to work with the Eagles. Man, the first song I ever karaoke'd in front of my wife was Take It Easy. Isn't that basic as shit? But I love that song. I love that song. Yeah, but I ended up getting to do that at a venue called The Sphere that I could never afford to get into. That's the other ironic part, right? I got to work with one of my favorite bands in the world, Midland. Man, they're all super nice, man. I like their music a lot, and they're maybe the first band that I work with that my wife actually liked, so when we get tickets to it, she's not bored, which is really cool. Yeah, I got to do all this amazing stuff. And another neat thing about them is that Cameron, their bass player, was a music video director forever. He did all the Bruno Mars' stuff back in the day. And his brother was a YouTuber who my wife was super into, and then we met him, and she was scared as shit. I get to work with Charley Crockett. Man, he's got an aesthetic that is so easy to draw for. I love Charley Crockett. So I got to draw for Charley Crockett. I got to do all of these cool billboards. It was a whole series of them. They needed all these posters done in about a week and a half. Yeah, so that's why I'm as white as I am. I'm pale as shit because I'm in a dark room drawing all the time. You guys probably see the projector through me. And then, of course, Fort Worth son, Leon Bridges. Man, I thought I missed the boat on Leon Bridges. I used to watch him play at Magnolia Motor Lounge back in the day. I saw him play Sam Anderson from Quaker City's Nighthawks guitar one night, and I was blown away. He just stepped up there, he sang like 3 songs, and it was beautiful. And I was like, I don't know how to help this guy. Well, it turns out he ended up helping me years down the line. Coolest thing I've gotten to do with him was this billboard. Some of y'all might have seen this. This is in downtown Fort Worth. It's still up. I drove by it today. It's off of Lancaster. What was so meaningful to me about this was that it was a thank you letter from Leon, but I got to thank the city too in a lot of ways. I got to figure out what we were going to say. I got to talk to his team. I got to figure out what Leon wanted to say to the city. I got to make it as bold as I wanted. And I got a paycheck at the end of it. That's also cool. Not as meaningful, but cool. Now, the moment you're all here, unless you're here for pizza and beer. Branding. We're going to talk about branding a little bit. These are the rules to brand yourself by. Now, I put rules in parentheses because I know I'm probably talking to some musicians, and I'm an artist, and rules are like meant to be broken or some shit, so don't focus too hard on rules. Rule number 1, the cereal box. Be who you are. Now, this is the one that I discuss with every single band that I work with, every manager. Be who you are. And what I mean by the cereal box is pretend that you're a little kid and you're walking down the cereal aisle. Everything bright and colorful is perfectly eye level. And you spot this box of cereal. And you say, oh man, that's the most magical box. I know that cereal's good. So I'm going to buy it, and you get it, and you get home, and the next morning, you're so excited, and you go to the kitchen table, and you go to pour it out, and it's fucking Raisin Bran. It's disappointing, right? Like, that's crazy. You don't put Raisin Bran in a Lucky Charms box. So be who you are. With most people in most situations, you have one chance for them to trust you, especially whenever people are purchasing something from you. So consider these things. Understand who you think you are. Understand who your fans think you are, and be open to outside input, right? Don't put psychedelic artwork on a country album, because some psychedelic fan is going to give your band a chance, open it up, and be listening to country music. They're not going to trust you anymore. They're not going to trust me anymore. So we got to work as a team to make sure that we are accurately conveying what we are to people that are going to purchase things from us. These are some examples of it, and I'll be quick on this one. Nathaniel Rateliff, I work with him a lot. He went on a solo tour. He was playing a bunch of old theaters from, the late 1800s, early 1900s. And he comes from Colorado, and we focus a lot on the nature aspect of that, right? He's got this deep, comforting color. He's got a deep, comforting voice. So we use this darker green. We use a lighter green to offset it. We use the gold because the gold is warm. And we create all these ornate fixtures that were pulled from each one of the venues that he was going to go play. So you're already in the venue. You see the poster. It works a little reverse this way. But if you saw this poster before you went in, I would hope that you would maybe understand a little bit about what you're going to go in there and hear. Charley Crockett. Now, we did 2 billboards. The thing about Charley Crockett that's interesting is he can span from the 50s to the early 80s with his music, right? You can do designs that are based in both of those or pull from that. You can use a bright pink and a green, and it makes sense for Charley because he's a vivid person. He's got a vivid story. You can use more, warm colors, a little more plain colors, comfortable colors, like a blue and an orange. Midland, they're a country band. They're playing in Texas. Let's be on the nose with it. We did it, and people trusted us because you go listen to that song, and it sounds like the record looks. Number 2, cast a wide net. Don't sell twice. What I mean by don't sell twice, don't sell to the audience that you already have. Consider them, always consider them, but don't sell to them specifically. You've already got them. They're gonna buy your record. They're gonna buy your merchandise. Appreciate them, treat them right, make sure you know they care. But consider these things. You need to create curiosity. Curiosity brings people in. Look for any honest avenue to get into the homes of more people. Now, when you do that, you basically create a situation where someone is curious about this record. They're looking at the record. It's in their hands. We want it in their hands. They're holding a physical record in their hands. The longer it's in their hands, the more they're looking at it. Maybe they're a little curious about what's on the inside of it. Now, it's a cereal box, so it has to make sense. You can't just throw some weird shit on the cover and hope that that works and draws people in. Make it make sense, but leave them something to kind of guess about. They'll buy the record. You also want to sell to people that just want something cool to put on their wall. People pay $25 for a piece of art. Let them buy a piece of art that has your record in it. One day they take it down to clean it, they listen to it, and now you got a fan 5 years down the road. Be smart about it. And like I said, don't take your existing audience for granted. Here are some examples of that. Right here, there's a band called Acid Carousel that were out of Austin, Texas. Now they're called Gus Baldwin and the Sketch. Sorry, they were out of Denton, now they're in Austin. They did this concept album that was about a cult, and there was this character called the Collector. So this right here is basically, it's the front and back of that record. There are no words on the cover. The colors, they're intended to make you feel a little bit like someone who's being taken in by a cult. They're vivid and bright. They create a slight uncomfortableness to it. But they're red and blue, colors that people are super familiar with, and it can draw you in. The only words that are on there, their guitarist had written this weird poem about the collector. We put those on the back. The only information on this record is on the spine. It tells the name of the album, all sorts of stuff like that. But you gotta buy the album and you're gonna hear this entire story, but you gotta be intrigued enough. You can create pieces of merchandise that also do other things. An ashtray for Leon. Leon and I got together and we talked about his Gold Digger Sound tour, okay? He called me up and he said, let's make a whole line for this for this tour that I'm about to go on. And I said, well, what do you want people to do while they listen to the record? No one really thinks about that. People think, well, people are just gonna listen to records. No, man, people are multitasking all the time. He's like, I don't know, I think it'd be cool if people just smoked. And I was like, cool. Yeah, that's great, dude. That's wonderful. So we made an ashtray with his face on it, and we sold it on tour. Sold ashtrays on tour. It's great. I got one of these in my house. I don't smoke, but it's just there looking good. Bandanas. Man, this is great. Taylor Craig Mills, he's a local guy. I mean, I've known him for a long time. He was a bartender at the Moon whenever I used to play there. Tammy Nielsen. She's out here making really cool art, or really cool music also. But we created something that basically did something else so that the people who didn't need an album or didn't need a t-shirt, they have something maybe a little less expensive to purchase that they could take home with them. The album Floret here. Those are both my nephews right there on that cover. I had painted that one. That's my nephew Buster, and that's my nephew Kai over here. And the whole concept with this one, and we'll touch base on this one here in a second, is it's a board game. So it looks like an old board game. That's kind of the point we're trying to get across with an artistic spin on it. But if you look in the bottom left corner over here, there's like this demon hand reaching over to my nephew. And he put that there because we were like, someone's gonna look at that and say, what the fuck is happening to that kid over there, right? It draws people in. It made sense for the record too, because there were parts of the record that sounded like that, but there was also parts of the records that sounded like Steely Dan. So 80s board game fit perfect. Out of the Blue, this is a single that the Texas Gentlemen put out. It's the first thing that I worked with them on. And this one has absolutely nothing. There's an explanation behind it. It's a political explanation, and I'll explain it to you one-on-one if you want. But basically, this is intended to be put on a wall. That's it. So I was selling to that person. Number 3, purpose. Why am I making this? Things to consider. Who/what is this item for? You gotta have somebody buying it, right? Is this an item worth creating? Why am I making this? What's the point? Do I wanna lug this around town? Do I wanna have like 50 ashtrays that I gotta carry everywhere? No. Does the design fit the item I'm placing it on? This is a really important one. I used to get all of these free t-shirts whenever I'd work on something. They'd send me like 10 t-shirts for something I did. And a lot of times I was designing a poster and then they would just slap it on a t-shirt. Well, they slap it on a t-shirt and I'd give my wife these shirts and she would never wear them. And I was like, do you not like these shirts? She's like, well, they just don't really like work because high-waisted was like a thing. And she's like, they're just cut off. And man, it completely changed the way that I viewed designing merchandise versus records. Design it to be worn. That's the whole thing. Like, she wouldn't wear them. Now she wears my stuff. It's very nice. Like, I swear I'm not like vain. It's just nice. It's cool that she likes it, right? Now, number 4, and there's only one more after this, so hang with me. Bang for the buck. Customer use and choosing your colors. Okay, this is a very, very important one. Arguably, outside of Cereal Box, this is the most important one. We're gonna jump down to the 3rd point. Does this item allow wear with multiple outfits? Think about that. Everybody's got a budget. So you gotta make a shirt stretch a long way, right? So you wanna create something that is cost effective for people, that also allows them to wear with multiple outfits. Think about that. A shirt at a concert now is $25, $30. Once you start working with people like Leon and all them, those shirts are $60, $70. Once you work with Post Malone, those things are selling for $100. People that are going to those concerts, they already spent $100 easy to sit in the nosebleeds. So they're already planning on spending $100 on a t-shirt. Local musicians, that's not the case, man. You gotta hustle. I played in a band too. You gotta hustle. You gotta have merchandise that's affordable, and you gotta convince people to wear that. So when someone comes to your booth, think about that. Think about if they can wear that multiple ways. Think about the quality of the item. They wanna know that it's not gonna fall apart. Think about, does anyone like this color? No one thinks about that. People are like, well, the poster was blue, so the shirt's gotta be blue. Fuck no, dude. No one's wearing blue shirts. Stop putting shit on blue shirts. Put it on like a black or a white, something that actually sells. And do I need more than one color? You get into screen printing, I mean, we're in printed threads right now. You get into screen printing, a lot of times, you're paying per color. You got a budget. Don't add extra colors if you don't need extra colors. Plus, the more colors you add to something, the harder it is to wear with multiple outfits. Learn that from my wife. Here's some examples. Matt Vasquez up here from Delta Spirit. Simple black and white. And that's a cheap design. That font is called Grandmaster Clash. It is the best. We started adopting it because he did an album called Texas Murder Ballads, and I wanted to do one of those like kind of in memoriam type shirts, and that font was so perfect that I downloaded it and I paid the license on it, and now I got it, and you can wear that with a lot of stuff. Texas Gentleman right here. Simple one color shirt. It's a little weird color shirt. I think it ended up being on more of a gold than that. Gold does fairly well with bands. The Texas Gentlemen, they sell a lot of gold. I don't know if it's just their crowd, but they sell a lot of gold. So that can be worn with a lot of things. That's the back side of it. Now, keep in mind when you design something, if you're doing a front back shirt, you're paying for screen setup for both. Charley Crockett bandana over here. This one, simple one color, fits Charlie's vibe, easy for people to be attracted to. Mountain Joy, two color print over here. A little harder to wear with things, but you can still get a lot of wear out of that shirt. And then we go up here, this is a two color print up here, this Leon Bridges poster, gold and black. What you want to do is you leave all that white, I leave all the white space blank, and I let the paper play as the third color. It's a way to be budget friendly. This is the other thing. Multiple use, right? You're trying to sell a record for $35, and this came out during COVID, right? We were working on this up till COVID, then COVID hit, and luckily we had created a board game. So this right here is what the inside of that record looks like. You open up the record and you got a board game. There's these little perforated pieces of cardboard that are sitting in there. You pop those out and you got things to play with. You can play it high. There's rules for if you want to play it high. There's rules for if you want to play it sober. And your players, you can flip them on those little perforated deals. There's a person who's fucked up on one side and a person who's sober on the other, except for me because I'm sober all the time, so I'm just exactly the same on both. But number 5, attainability. Stay within your means. And don't kill yourself trying to make merchandise. Don't do that. It's hard to be creative when you're struggling. Believe me, I've done it. I do it. It's tough. You got to remember a few things. Visual artists have a value just like you do if you're an artist. Be considerate to their rates. That doesn't mean that you have to pay what they're asking. Have a conversation with it. And if you go back to the Andy Griffith style way of doing things, yeah, just be nice and kind. It'll get you a long way. Man, I'm at the point now, I don't have to work with people I don't like. I'm not going to work with you if you're an asshole. Don't be an asshole. Carry that across life. Talk to your local printers about the best plan for you. You got people out there that are in this industry that can tell you what will work best for what you're doing and how much money you've got. Consider a pre-sale. And that's a great one. Some printing companies have pre-sale situations like where they'll let you run a pre-sale on their website and then all of a sudden you can kind of see what people are buying. It'll offset your cost and you're paying less out of pocket to have merchandise on the road. It's a great concept. A lot of people do that. I did that with Jake Palashek. Talk to other bands. They're a resource. It does not hurt to talk to other bands. You're going to be sharing bills with them, hopefully. You're going to be traveling with them. They may have the amp that you need whenever your amp blows out last minute at a show. Talk to them. They've had interactions with all of these people. Have a realistic plan, scale, and be patient. I've scaled my entire career. I started with a hand-me-down laptop, okay? I still draw everything with a Papermate Flare pen and printer paper from Walmart. The cheapest thing you can because art should be accessible. I would get computers off of Craigslist after that. Once that gateway died, they had Photoshop already built into them, 10-year-old computers, and I'd run them into the ground. I'd use them and use them and use them, I'd run them into the ground. And then I'd get on Craigslist and I'd buy another one. It would last me 2 years. And I did this until I could afford one that actually worked for me. That's the thing. You got to put yourself in a situation like that. You got to actually think about the reality of what you're trying to do and how you're going to get there. Don't jump at it. Don't bite off too much. And most importantly, go make something meaningful. It's as simple as that. Give a shit about what you're doing. When you talk to everybody, Make them feel like you care that they're there. It doesn't matter if you do. Make them feel that way. And something beautiful can come out of that. Be kind to them. Be understanding. And give it a go. And don't forget to ask yourself, why not me? Every step of the way. Thank you.